Hi everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to my weekly reading wrap up. So let us see, how many books did I read this week? So it looks like I read 13 books this week. However, there's 2 of the books that that are series wrapped up together. So I'll talk about those when I get there. But most of this week was dominated by reading the Psy-Changling series, which I'm making my way through right now. And holy crap, that was a lot of fun. So let's dive into those. So I read Caressed by Ice, which is book number 3. This is about Judd, who is a psy, and Brenna, who is a wolf changeling. How do we put this? She is the young woman, she's like young adult, I think she's like 22 or 23, who was kidnapped and was the girl that we were looking for in the first book of the series. And so it's been a little while, but she's still struggling with a little bit of PTSD, as well as she isn't able to shift forms right now, which is kind of sad. And she is falling for Judd, who is a psy, a very powerful psy. He was a part of the Arrows, which is like an elite psy, like killing team basically. And he and some of his like family are these group of 5 psy who have their own like neural network, and they live with the Snow Dancer clan because reasons. You know, I can't get too deep into these, this is kind of hard, but this one was really fun. I would consider this an age gap romance. I would consider this well, obviously it's a shifter romance. It is a fated mates romance, and it's book number 3, and I really liked it. I really liked it because after the first 2 books in the series, which were psy women and changeling men, we are switching that dynamic, and now we're dealing with a man who can't have emotion and a woman who is. And see, with some of the side, there's this thing called dissonance, and it actually punishes them whenever they feel emotion, so, or anything that could possibly make them feel emotion. So whenever Judd chooses to interact with Brenna or anyone else in a more happy or playful or loving manner, he is directly like punished by that feeling. And it was just so good. I loved Judd. I really, really liked him. Then I read book number 4, which was Mind to Possess. I read Hostage to Pleasure, which was book number 5, and then Branded by Fire, which is book number 6. And this one I remember for sure. This one is about Riley and Mercy. And so Mercy is a panther and Riley is a wolf. And the first chapter of the book is them kind of having this really steamy, I wouldn't call it hate sex because they don't hate each other. They are like the liaisons for each team, because the Panthers and the Wolves have a pact that they've made together to team up their resources. And so these two have kind of been dancing around each other for a while. And the thing with the changelings is that they need a way to like release steam basically. And they do it with each other. So the first chapter of this book is them giving into their feelings for each other and just going for it. And then they end up trying to decide, like, should we do this like friends with benefits thing? Because either one of them could end up finding their mates, and then any other relationship you have going at that time would become waylaid. They've never heard of mixed species being together, which is really silly, because if they would have asked anyone, they would know that that's possible, and it's even possible for interspecies babies, which I won't explain how or like what that is, but it was just really fascinating. Like, the thing that I love about this series is that mating bond fixes like everything. So whatever the drama is, the mating bond is going to fix it. And I love that. I love that kind of magic, that kind of thing where like whatever the struggle is, they're gonna be okay. So I love that. I really loved Riley and Mercy. And then I did a thing where I skipped ahead to book 10 in the series. Okay, so I read 1 through 6 all in order. And then there's a couple who I am obsessed with. And I looked up and realized that their love story wasn't until book 10. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to enjoy these other books in between if I have to wait that long to read about Hawk and Sienna. So I skipped to book 10, which is about Hawk and Sienna. So Sienna is a psy. She's a very powerful psy. She's actually Judd's niece. And she's one of the psy children that they actually like left the main network for. And her and Hawk, who Hawk is the snow dancer alpha, so he's a wolf alpha, they have been having a like tingly feelings for a while. However, when Sienna first like came under the protection of his pack, she was only 16 or 17, so he very strictly like kept completely away from her. Like he knew that he was attracted to her, and he's like, no. So this also is an age gap. I think Hawk is about 32 at the start of this one, so he's probably like 30 when he met her, so he, you know, keeps himself away from her. But now she's getting stronger and better and more powerful with her psi powers, and she's actually, you know, kind of joining the pack as like a protector and actually getting given work to do and stuff. And so she comes into more contact with Hawk, and she's basically just done waiting. She's ready to make her move, and Hawk is, you know, needing to release steam. Like we talked about, that's a thing that happens because he's not a good alpha if he is distracted by these like sexual feelings that he has. And so he, in the packs, like, if you haven't found your mate, it's just kind of seen as appropriate to, you know, find a fuck buddy basically. But everyone starts warning him. People who previously warned him away from Brenna, which they warned him away because she was too young then, but she's not now. And they're like, dude, are you really going to take a different lover when it's clear that you both have feelings for each other? And Hawk is just so certain that A, she's not his mate because he believes that he lost his mate at a young age. And 2, that it would be cruel of him to ask someone to take him on as a long-term partner as alpha because there's just so much drama that comes with him. But Sienna isn't going to give up easily because she's awesome. So I love that. I'm currently, a book I'm currently reading, so then I went backwards and I'm reading book 7 right now, which is Blaze of Memory, but I'm in the middle of that one right now, so it's not in this wrap up. Then I read Wildcat by Max Monroe. This is the series that comes after the Billionaire Bad Boy series and after the Luke docuseries, the St. Luke docuseries by Max Monroe. So this one is a sports romance series, and this series is also on KU, which I really liked listening to the other books on KU. So this one is about a football player for the Mavericks, which is owned by one of the people from the Billionaire Bad Boys team. And he is on a flight that gets delayed, and he has a thing going with the flight attendant, and they start this flirtation with each other. And I mean, it's really straightforward romance with them. It sucks because it's kind of like a half long distance, half thing, because she's always flying somewhere and he's always flying somewhere and they don't get to see each other a lot. And I just didn't feel a huge connection to the characters, which I was really bummed about because the narrators were a couple that I really like. But I couldn't get into it. So I only gave that one 3 stars, and I was kind of bummed because I really liked the other series, but I just wasn't feeling it. It wasn't as steamy or as fun as her other series was, and I didn't like the setup of this one. So I may try another one in this series, one that isn't so long distancey. I hate that. Because it was a lot of texting and phone calls, and I'm just not into that. Like, there's only so many ways Skype sex can happen that's fun before it's just like you characters need to be in the same place together. So I only gave that one 3 stars. So then I read Cherry Bomb by Carmel Rhodes, which is one of the Taboo Book Club picks for this month. That live show, by the way, is going to be August 30th. I'm doing that with my friend Tamika over at Library of Tomes. There is a group chat on my Discord down below if you want to join in. We're reading Cherry Bomb as well as Him by LL Ash. Those are our 2 picks. And they're both best friend's dad romances, okay? So this one is about a girl and a guy. They meet out one night. They end up having a one-night stand. And then the next day, her friend happens to be meeting her biological father, who she has never met before. And it turns out to be the guy that her friend had a one-night stand with. And that's probably enough to say. I don't want to say too much about it since this is one we're going to talk about in Taboo Book Club. I ended up giving it a 3-star for reasons I'll talk about there. But just in for you, like, it was too short. So I'll say that about it. It was too short. There were things that I liked about it that I needed it to be expanded more. And there were a few, like, pet peeves that I have that made it a 3-star. But it was still really fun. The second book in the series, I believe, is about the daughter, which would be really cool. So I might continue the series. Not sure. Then I read the Wolf Hotel series by Nina West. So this was I think there was 4 of the books put together, and it was like Tempt Me, Break Me, something, and it was a 4-book series by Nina West. My best friend Shauna told me about this when I was visiting her last weekend, and it was on Kindle Unlimited, so I scooped that right up. And this was a series about a really naive farm girl who she is engaged to kind of her high school sweetheart, but they're from pretty strict religious families, and so they're trying to like wait till they get married, and then she walks in on him cheating on her with a married woman or like engaged woman herself. And he like begs her for forgiveness. Her family encourages her to forgive him because they're like, he's the one for you, like don't let this mistake get in the way. And she's just had it. So she ends up applying for a job at a hotel that's about to open in Alaska. And she's from like Pennsylvania, a farm in Pennsylvania. And she ends up getting this job and flies to Alaska. And the first night there, like all the girls she's going to be working with, they like get her a little bit drunk. She's over 21, but she like hasn't drank before because her family doesn't. And so she ends up running into this guy. She calls him Sexy Lumberjack. She like drops her glasses looking over the pier, and she's about to like dive in to get them. And this guy stops her and is like, what the hell are you doing? That water's way colder than you think it is. You're drunk. You're gonna get hypothermia and die. And this ends up being like a 10-page of them just like flirting and him just being like, what are you doing, you ridiculous girl? But in a sweet way. She's super hitting on him, and he's just like, do you realize how dangerous this could be if anyone else had found you? And so he takes her home and gets her to her bunk and leaves her there. And then the next day there's a staff meeting, and Sexy Lumberjack, who has now like shaved up his face and is wearing a suit, happens to be the owner of Wolf Hotel. And not only that, it turns out he actually had like personally picked her out to work there, even though she had no experience or anything. But she had done a really compelling like interview video, like stating her case of why she needed to come to Alaska. And he actually asked her to be his personal assistant. And it's immediately like, they keep ending up in sexual situations. She also had, like, it even says this on the back of the book, like, she keeps walking in on bad situations. So there's, like, well, not bad situations, because they're not bad. But she walks in on her roommates having a 3-way with a guy. She walks in on her boss, Henry's his name. She walks in on Henry pleasuring himself when she shows up because she's his personal assistant, and instead of turning away, she like watches it. And so she ends up in these really weird sexual situations all the time, usually involving other people. And her and Henry, they try to fight their attraction, but not too hard, and it ends up being their romance. So the thing about this series that I really liked, because I gave this series a 4.5, because it started out like it was going to follow some tropes I'd seen before, right? Naive girl, you know, she's a virgin. She wants to become like sexually, like she's ready to just like go for it. And then it's a boss situation. It's a powerful billionaire situation. but he has a lot of other stuff going on at the same time. His father wants him to, like, so he has some things in his past that made his dad a little bit hesitant to let him be in control of all of the hotels, because he has an older brother who is really, like, competing with him all the time, and they have a lot of tension between the two of them, and so he can't let it get out that he's seeing his personal assistant, because he had a personal assistant previously that he also had an affair with, and it ended badly. So he's like, what is it about me that I always like my assistants? And I would say maybe you should, you know, like hire a man instead, but whatever. And there's a lot more that goes on. But anyway, my point was, there's a couple parts of this that seem like a series you've seen before. Like there's the, you know, we're super hot for each other, and then there's an obstacle, and then there's like a breakup somewhere in between, and then there's all these things. But it took some turns I was not expecting. This also has a little bit of like suspense going on in the third and fourth book, which I wasn't expecting to happen. And I ended up finding it just really pleasant. And it was fun messaging my friend about it, because I was getting to certain parts and I was like, you sure this is one of your favorites? Because I'm annoyed about this, this, and this. And she's like, just wait. And then the author surprises me, and they went places I wasn't expecting at all. Trigger warning for an assault in book 3. So know that. Then I read A Week to Be Wicked by Tessa Dare. This was a pick for the summer fling. This one is book 2 in A Week to Be Wicked. And this one is about Minerva Highwood, which there's 3 of the sisters in Spindle Cove. This is in the Spindle Cove series. Sorry, I didn't say what series it was. This is book 2 in the Spindle Cove series. And so this is a road trip book. This worked for my road trip square. And this is Minerva and Colin. And so Minerva is she doesn't particularly have a name, but she's really into fossils and like dinosaurs and things like that. And she's actually found a dinosaur fossil in a cave in Spindle Cove, and she's made a cast of it. And she wants to get it to this certain meeting that is happening in Scotland, and she needs a way to get there. And now Colin, he is a rake and a lord. He's Lord Payne, and he's waiting to come into his inheritance when he turns like 27, 25 or something. I don't know, but he's a few months away from that happening, or years, I'm not sure. And Minerva's mother is like really wanting Colin to marry her sister. And now Minerva doesn't want him to marry his sister because she thinks he's too much of a rake. Also, she really likes him for herself, but she knows that's not going to happen. And so she makes a deal with Colin that if he will help her get to Scotland, if he will run away with her and pretended to have eloped with her, then she will give him half of the prize money that she's definitely going to win for her discovery. So this sends the two of them on a road trip together. There is sharing bed situations. There is, let's see, what's it say? It says a fake elopement. There is armed robbers, surviving their worst nightmares, and they travel over 400 miles without killing each other in a very small carriage. So it was so much fun. There was a point in this book where the hero does something that made me so angry. I was ready to throw the book. And I'm smiling because this is Tessa Dare. And so when the hero is doing this certain action, I was like, Tessa, I'm going to need some serious groveling to happen here. Like, are you going to bring through the level of grovel I'm going to expect for me to like this guy again? Because it's going to need to be substantial. And not even 10 pages later, I shouldn't have worried at all. Because Colin became one of my favorite Tessa Dare heroes in just a few pages more. And the way that he ends out this book is fucking fantastic. I loved it. A few of my other gal pals will be reading this book for the readathon as well. And I'm so excited for them to do it because it's going to get really dark, girls. If you're watching this, it's going to get really dark and you're going to be ready to throw the book down, because some of y'all, I know you'll jump on and you'll be like, he's not going to redeem himself from this. There's no way he's going to do it. It's not going to happen. Just wait. Because number one, Minerva doesn't let him get away with that. And number two, it's Tessa Dare. And it's amazing what happens. So I loved it. Of course, it's 5 stars. I am slowly making my way through the rest of the Tessa Dares because I've loved every single one. And the next Spindle Cove is another novella, because that's the thing, is the Spindle Cove, the novellas fit in between each one. So this is actually like book 3, but it's book 2 of the full ones. But I have all of the novellas in physical form. And I love it. I love them. I love it. I love her. Read a Tessa Dare if you haven't. She's fantastic. Then I read The Beast of Blackmore by Milla Vane. So I've been waiting to read this one because I love the first 2. And the 3rd book ended up getting pushed back to February of next year instead of the end of this year. And so I was pretty bummed about it. So I wanted to save one of the Gathering of Dragon books to read until later. But I'm also trying to work through a lot of my purchased ebooks, just for my own peace of mind, because they start to overwhelm me, you know, as they do. And I was like, but this is a novella and I really want to read it. This is a tale of, we have a woman who is being sent on a mission to tame the Beast of Blackmore. The goddess gives her this job, and there is the Beast of Blackmore, who she doesn't know is a person. She thought it was actually a beast because the goddess doesn't explain to her who the Beast of Blackmore is. Now, we've heard of the Beast of Blackmore in A Heart of Blood and Ashes, when Yvonne talks about all the things that she had seen in her castle, and that the Beast of Blackmore was actually one of the people that her mother had an eye on for Yvonne to marry, because it was a torn between a few different people that they were keeping an eye out for. And, you know, the Beast of Blackmore, he ended up being a kind of offensive person to the goddess, so we didn't want to go with him because it might be a bad choice. And it just makes me laugh a little bit, because the thing that the Beast of Blackmore did to piss off the goddess is that he pissed in her offering bowl. And so he's being punished in a few certain ways. But anyway, so this woman, she has been on this journey for 2 years. And then when she finds out that this man is a man, she's certain that the taming doesn't mean like killing him, but it means more of like freeing him maybe of his burdens, but he doesn't really trust her that. And so she offers herself to him in all ways. She's like, I am going to make myself yours to use however you want to. Because she believes that that's going to be the best way to earn his trust. And I don't want to say too much more because it's a novella, but it still has lots of steam in it because it's Milla Vane. It still has lots of good fantasy stuff. And as to like what it adds to the story overall, I'm not 100% sure, but it's still really fun. Like, I wouldn't consider it a novella that is 100% essential to anything, at least not that I've seen so far. But it was still a great like filler. It gave me more information about the world. It was fun to be back in that world, and like, man, I want the next book so much. I just love that series. I really want to reread A Heart of Blood and Ashes, but I don't know when I would do that, but I love it. Then I read The Seduction of Emily by Rachel Brimble. I only gave this 3 stars. Oh, I gave The Beast of Blackmore 4 stars. 4.5, because I rarely give novellas 5 stars because it's never enough story for me, so that's how it is. The Seduction of Emily by Rachel Brimble. I've been wanting to read this for a while. I got this on KU when I was looking for dark historicals. This is a book about this woman who, she's engaged to a family friend, but he's changed a lot in the last few years from what she's seen, so she's not as thrilled to marry him as she was before. And then there's this man who wants to get revenge against her fiance, and so he starts kind of like melding his way into her life, and he really wants to warn her about who this man is, because this man that she's engaged to, he's done some pretty bad things. And he knows that he's not going to convince Emily and her family that this guy's bad just by showing up and saying so. So he works on becoming their friend so that they trust him, so that he can explain what this guy did. So I only gave this 3 stars because, number one, I wanted to be more invested in it. Because there's some really things that I like. That Emily is constantly standing up to Nicholas, who is her fiance, the not great guy. He is continually saying that, like, you need to obey me, you need to do what I say. And she's like, why? Like, I want to be your partner. And he's like, no, I'm your husband. I will be your husband. I'm going to be in charge of you. And she's like, I would never contradict you in public or like cause problems, but like, I just wish you wouldn't act so superior all the time. And just like, she's just always questioning him. So I really like that about her, where she doesn't keep that internalized. She's saying to him, like, I want to have a good marriage with you. Please work with me. And he's like, no, but I'm going to be in charge. So I don't care what you have to think. And he's so blatant about it that it's frustrating, because he's so cocky about the fact that she needs to marry him because their families have this like contract that their families will always run the business together. And so he's so confident that she won't do anything to mess up their marriage that he has tipped his hand in so many ways. Like, he's showing that he's going to be a horrible husband. But because Emily is so sure she has to go through with this, she like doesn't even try to fight it, besides telling him. Like, she's telling him she's unhappy, but she doesn't like tell her dad she doesn't want to marry him, even though her father would totally help her get out of it. So it just ended up being too frustrating for me to give it a higher rating. Like, I just couldn't do it. So I was disappointed. Then I read Catching the Cowboy by Kennedy Fox. So this was a book that came in my Reveal Romance book box. This was my first Kennedy Fox, which this is 2 authors actually writing together. This is Brooke and Lyra, and they are best friends and they like write together. This is book 2 in the Circle B Ranch series, but it's book 7 in the, what's the series called? I can't remember, but they're all like Western like ones. It's some kind of brothers, the Brooke brothers. I can't remember because I haven't read those ones, but this is a unrequited love story where the hero has the unrequited love. I wouldn't call this Catching the Cowboy. I would call it Catching the Cowgirl, because he is doing heavy pursuit of his best friend's younger sister. She's only a year younger than he is, but I think like 3 years younger than her brother. And she's just graduated college and she's moved back home, and he has always been flirting with her. He's been very open about it, but she doesn't take it seriously, and her brother doesn't take it seriously, even though he's been stating his intentions about wanting Rowan for the last 10 years, when he kissed her the night of her spring fling and she got like mad and ran away, even though she really liked it. And he has been holding a candle for her ever since. And so he's done a lot of one night stands. He's never really had a long relationship. And then about like 2 years ago, he just stopped doing that and has just been like waiting for her to come home. She recently broke up with her boyfriend because he was cheating on her. And so she doesn't really want to get in a serious relationship again. But Diesel, his name is Adam, but he goes by Diesel. He is like, I'm not giving up. I've always wanted to have a chance with you. Please give me a chance. So it becomes kind of like a secret relationship for a while. And then the reason why, so I gave this book 4 stars. I really liked it. But I gave this 4 stars. And I loved it so much because it has a trope that I don't like, which I don't want to tell you what it is because the back of the book doesn't tell you what it is. But let's just say it had to do with a one night stand that Diesel had 3 years ago. There was a thing that came of that, which comes back to bite him in the ass at a really inopportune time. And these authors usurp that trope in a very interesting way that I was not expecting. Like when I got to, like, one of the reasons I held off starting this so like right away is because I knew what that trope was, and I was like, ugh, I hate that trope so much. Please, I don't want to read it. But it was my down home country pick. I had to do it. And they usurped that trope in such a clever way and managed to make it so enjoyable. And this book just had such a warm and fuzzy ending. Like, this series, I can tell, is going to be a warm and fuzzy series for me. And that makes me really happy because I've read a lot of really dark books lately, which I'm totally okay. Like, mentally, I can handle it. It's fine. But I've read either really, like, sad emotional books or really, like, hard stuff. And this was just so much fun. And so I really want to keep reading the series. This one just came out. So there's the first one in the series, and then the third one doesn't come out till the end of the year. But I think I'm going to go back and read the older ones because they're about like the older generation. So I'm not sure if it's parents, but I know like one of her uncles is in one of them. And there's just like more of the family is talked about. So I definitely want to do it, or to read more, because I really liked it. Then the last book I want to talk about, which is again a series, it's a novella series. I was actually waiting to finish that book before I filmed this because I was like, I'm almost done with it. I need to finish it before. And so I read the Edge series by C.D. Reese. So this is my second series by her, and the third, like, yeah, because earlier in the month I read another one by her, I think. Was it by her? It might have been last month. That I didn't like as much as this one. So this one was intense. So this book has a lot of mental illness triggers in it, but it also is a military romance. Both partners are in the military, and one of them, he has been drugged without his knowledge. It's a little fuzzy for me because there's a lot going on. And there's a lot of time jumps in this book. Like, that was probably the hardest part because I read this on one chunk after hearing C.D. Reese talk about this series on a podcast. She was on the Wicked Wildflowers book club, and she did a podcast episode with Sierra Simone where they talked about writing erotica. And when I heard her describe this series, I just had to try it. So the first one is called Rough Edge, and then it goes from there. But it's about this couple who they met in the military and then get married, and they're both are out at the beginning of it. And our hero, Caden, he is forming a split personality, is coming to be. And to keep his personality at bay, it helps him to chase it away when he has really rough sex with his wife, like BDSM, but not completely. And his wife, she really, really likes it. So it's not a problem for her that they want to do this. But the problem for it is that, number one, they're needing to do edgier and edgier things to keep his other personality back. But also the fact that they don't know why this is happening to them. Because again, he was kind of like drugged without his knowledge, from what I know, as part of like a military experimentation. And his split personality is very interesting, and I really like that. I've read one other book with associative identity disorder at the beginning of this year, actually, by Alessandra Torre, and I really liked it. So when I saw what this one was about, I was very excited. But yeah, it was very interesting. Some things yet really, really rough. And she's a psychologist and he's a doctor, and they were both those things in the military. She's from a military home. He joined after 9/11. And yeah, it's very interesting. It was very dark. I read most of it yesterday, and then I finished it up today, and it was a pretty dark hole. But what was interesting about it is how, and also where it lost me a little bit. So I gave this one a 4.5 stars just because it was so confusing. And I mean, even the author says, she's like, not all of this medicine is real that I'm talking about. And, you know, a lot of it is like artistic license. So that even made it more confusing. But it was interesting how they like work through some of the traumas together. And what was beautiful about it is they're both so devoted to each other. And they both go through some different things that have to do with the DID. And they're both so committed to loving each other no matter which personality is showing. And they're still very true to the central like personality of this. And to remember, they are being drugged to bring this out. So just know that if you read this, that we're not talking about people who this personality was just created because of childhood trauma, even though both of them have been through traumas. So it's not the same as like people who have that as a medical thing in quote unquote real life. Okay. So, but yeah. All right. So those are the books that I read this week. I only have 1 or 2 more books to read for Summer Fling. So that's cool. And yeah, I'm looking forward to reading more psy-changling books. I'm looking forward to just all the fun things. So just so you remember to, next Sunday is the Beast of Beswick live show, Beswick live show, which will be on my channel. So make sure you set a reminder for that if you want to join us. It'll be at 2 p.m. Central on Sunday. So yeah. Thank you so much for watching this. I put out new videos 3 to 4 times a week, and you can watch some more of them right now. Bye!